Conversations with Jennylyn. And tonight, we're not talking about any spiritual drama. Well, maybe not. Maybe yes. But tonight, my guest, Erik, is no stranger to my show. You have seen him several times on another series that I'm doing, but tonight, I wanted to invite him on this show because he has written two books. And although I must confess, I haven't read either of them, it's not because I don't want to, it's because time has not permitted me to as yet. I have the essence of what these two books are about. And tonight, since most of you have already gotten to know Erik, and I know you trust him, I thought it was the right time to invite him on my show to talk about his books. So, Erik, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Jennylyn. It's a little bit different than our Jenny flicks. So I'm
Very
excited.
different.
No Jenny flicks today.
No, Jennifer. It's very different. And Erik's two books, the first one is called From the Mouth, as in this thing that we used to speak. And the second book is called The Swiss Effect. So what I would thought we could do, Erik, is speak briefly about the first book at first, since the second book sounds like it's the one that's been getting you the reactions. Or maybe
I,
they both are. I don't know. Tell us.
so I would probably change your adjective to trouble. It gets me in trouble.
Okay.
so,
Okay.
but my first book, From the Mouth, which is right here, got the old nice American flag on the front. But this is my first book, and I wrote it shortly after Joe Biden became president, and all these all these events started happening, and we had the Afghan withdrawal that was right off the bat in his administration, and just seemed like at that moment when Biden first took over, we had like disaster after disaster after disaster from my point of view. So that's why I decided, I wanted to write my own book. Plus, I was getting censored a lot on social media. I was getting shadow banned on everything just because of my perspective. Um, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to write a book. And my ex wife had encouraged me. She said, you like researching and you're a good writer, so you write a book. I'm like, okay. So I just sat down and I do a little bit at a time, and then I had a complete book. So basically, this book goes through and briefly talks about what I think that uh, a middle America Joe Schmo thinks we could do better at as a country. And I tried to be as partisan as possible. I covered every kind of aspect of human life, like the economy, religion, anything that I could think of that major that Americans go through. I wanted to try to come up with my theory as to how we could improve those things that would benefit everybody, including, trying to, instead of making promises to uh, help at-risk communities, well, let's make a real investment into them. Let's take some federal money and let's go in there and let's create opportunity. Let's put some trade schools in there. Let's just bring some positivity to the at-risk communities, give them a chance to make it. And that's something that we've seen, and those communities do complain about that all the time, that we see these politicians, they make us 100 promises and then we don't see them for 4 years. So that is a concern in many places in America, and I wanted to bring that to light. I wanted to talk about what can we do militarily on the international stage. I put a lot of thought into this, and really started to develop my core base of my belief system as an American and what I believe in as we move forward into this crazy world that we're living in right now. And, which kind of led into my next book.
Okay, so your first book, what kind of reaction did you get from that one?
So we were still in the censorship era. So I had to work hard to get this book sold. Um, a lot of I couldn't really go to the cities to sell it. Nobody would give me a chance, because it wasn't a progressive book. It was more moderate. So it was tough, and I had to put a lot of work into it. And I did get a little bit of kickback. A lot of people didn't like my views, and it's easier said than done. Or when the Biden administration gets on TV for 4 straight years and says that the Afghan withdrawal was a success, that just doesn't resonate with me. And anytime one American soldier or one American citizen perishes, that's not a success to me. And I know a lot of people see it differently, but anytime we lose an American citizen in a conflict, that's not a success to me. So that I got a lot of just negative feedback, but nothing too serious. I wasn't too concerned about the repercussions of this book.
Well, that was kind of like your practice session,
Right.
but the big one. Because just like everything else, when you haven't done it for the first time, you sort of you're learning as you're doing it.
Correct.
And I know that because when I first started my show, I was so nervous. I think I kept saying so, and I look back
I still do it.
at some of my earlier shows and I'm like, geez, I really abused that word. And then when I interviewed the co-founder of Apple, which was one of the interviews I did at the inception of my production, I was faking it really good, but I was frozen because I was thinking,
That's
he's
high
been
profile right there.
right, and he's been interviewed by so many people, and here I am, Jane Doe from nowhere. I want to make sure I'm asking him questions that make sense, and he
Right.
actually gave me a plug because I asked him one question that he said on camera. You could go watch it. Nobody's ever asked me that question. And I was really pumped up after that. I relaxed and was able to do the interview. But whenever you're starting something new, there's an element of nervousness, I think, that comes from the
Right.
unknown and not having experience with it. So I applaud you that you actually cold turkey went out there and published a book. So then you grew some kahunas and you decided, all right, you don't want to carry my book. You think I'm Joe Smo from nowhere. I'm gonna give you a book. And so you you go and you publish The Swiss Effect. So as much as you can share about it tonight, let's go for it.
Okay. So the Swiss effect kind of happened by accident, I would say. It started with a TikTok video. And it was there was this video going around on TikTok, and it went everywhere. I think everybody pretty much saw it, where they were basically coming out and saying that the throne of Satan was in Switzerland. And I kept seeing this debate back and forth where people were saying, no, it's not. And people were saying, yes, it is. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to look into it. I'm going to go read about it and find out exactly where this throne is at. So I started looking into it and I thought, it's not in Switzerland. The Bible's pretty they give you enough pretty obvious hints about where it's at. It's in Turkey. So in Pergamum, Turkey. So that was a kind of a little, it started a trail. And then I was like, okay, well, where did this go? Is it still there? So I looked into it more, and then I found out
Stop.
that
Is there really a place called that?
yes, it is on them. It's there. This is
Are you kidding me?
yes.
All
This
right,
is
sorry to interrupt you, but I thought it was just like somebody just saying that because they'd heard something bad about Turkey.
no. It actually that's where it is. That's the place where Antipas was killed by Satan himself. So it's in the Bible. This is on the map. They have some pretty decent information about this actually being there. It was enough to where in World War II, as you know, Adolf Hitler was a very big connoisseur of historical things. He was one of the greatest archaeologists in the world. He put together the best teams and they was running around finding all kinds of stuff. That was no different. Hitler wanted that. He wanted that altar, which they call it the throne of Satan, but really it's kind of an altar. So Hitler had it moved from Turkey to Berlin. So that is where it is still at this day. Ironically, Barack Obama had a picture done where he was standing in front of it. So you can find that on the internet too.
Hmm.
So
Why would
ironically,
he want to be standing in front of that? I'm curious.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he probably didn't know that that's what he was standing in front of,
Okay.
just for fairness.
Okay. All right.
So, so I found that this was moved to Germany. Well, then into this day, the president of, well, he's more of a dictator, but the dictator of Turkey, Erdogan, he wants it back. He's asking Germany, he wants that throne back because there's a prophecy behind it to where if that throne returns to its rightful place in Pergamum, that the Second Ottoman Empire will emerge and be victorious.
Wow, you've really done your homework.
Yeah, I like rabbit holes. I fall down them all the time.
Got it. Just don't get stuck in one.
Right, right. So then I saw where I started getting into some of the World War II stuff, and I found a story where there was a firefight. Um, it was by plane, and they were having this like battle. I believe it was Germany and Austria, I think, but they were having this firefight up in the sky, and they got a little too close to the Swiss Alps, and the Swiss Alps basically told the German pilot, "Get out of here! We're going to blow you out of the sky." And then the Germans were deterred, and it made me think. I'm like, Switzerland's a tiny little country. Hitler was running, he was running around conquering everything at that time. So why didn't he conquer Switzerland? So what made Switzerland so special that you couldn't conquer it? So then that's when I started my investigation into Switzerland. I started off with the history. When did this neutrality start? And so I went all the way back to where Switzerland started to gain its monetary investments into the rail system through the mountains. And they needed a way to fund it. So that's when the Swiss banks all started. Then I got into the United Bank of Switzerland, which is, I believe, to this day, they're the fourth largest asset management company in the world. So then I started digging into the United Bank of Switzerland and found out that there's a lot of people who have ties to this bank all over the world. And so it just became a web after web after web of information. And then I found that there's so many people linked. And then I looked into the Swiss banking system. Why is the Swiss banking system so elaborate? Why does everybody want to bank in Switzerland? Well, most people already know that the Swiss banks have a super secure facilities. Most of them are very secure. It takes several modes of identification to even get to your stuff. And then on top of that, they don't share their banking information with anyone. No country, no organization except one. And I found out who that one is. It's the United States IRS. So why would
What?
ah So you should have read the book, Jennylyn.
I haven't had a chance, but I am going to. But I have a lot of my friends reading it. But keep
Good.
going.
So as I looked into it, I'm like, well, how does the IRS get privilege to look into these very secured records? Well, apparently anybody can bank there. Criminals, it doesn't matter. As long as you're of some kind of standing in the world, you can bank in these super secure banks, like the Bank of Zurich and some of these major Swiss banks. What set the IRS in the United States apart was the United States basically bullied their way into it. They said, look, you don't have to share nothing with anybody unless we're hunting a certain criminal that has assets in your bank. So that was the deal. The IRS, if they're looking into something, they do have the privilege to audit any bank account that they're looking for. So there's that. So I was like, well, why does the United States have so much vested interest in Switzerland? Then I started looking at the organizations that are based in Switzerland. Just like we've had recently with Donald Trump, he made the executive order to pull out of the World Health Organization. That is in Switzerland. The World Economic Forum, which is going on right now, which President Trump spoke at today, is in Switzerland. Every international hand of the world is in this tiny little country, Switzerland, including a company called, an organization, I should say, called CERN. So CERN is also in that radar, as I put it, because they do their research of the particles, and they basically, what they do is they have a giant circle. For those of you, I'll try to keep this as layman terms as possible. They have a giant circle, and it's miles in diameter, and they take two particles and they shoot them off and they run them into each other, and then they see what the explosion does. So that is they call that particle, when they run into each other, they call it the God particle. So it made me think more. Why is this going on? What does the Vatican Church think about this? So I went over and I said, what does the Vatican have to do with Switzerland? Because to be a guard of the Pope, you have to have a certain percentage of Swiss bloodline. Well, why? What's so special about the Swiss? So I just keep finding all these things about why is Switzerland so special. And so then I looked into it more. Well, then just recently, Pope Francis, our current Pope, he ordered that there are to be no more exorcisms in the country of Switzerland. And I'm going, why would he do that? You can have an exorcism anywhere in the world by the Catholic Church. Why is Switzerland exempt? Why does it look like he's allowing the demonic forces to be successful in Switzerland? So then I started looking into is there anything evil in Switzerland? What's the folklores of this country? And then I started with Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which is based in the Swiss Alps. And Frankenstein would come out of the Alps and come down into the cities and scare everybody. So, and most people have already, have read Frankenstein or have watched the movies of some sort. So you basically have a base idea of what that's about. But that was in the Swiss Alps. And then I started looking into these little villages in the Alps. And then I found this folklore. It's about like a witch banshee spirit that's in the Swiss Alps, and it's called the I'm going to mispronounce this most likely, but it's called the Chakata. And it comes out. The folklore is it would come out and it would come down to these little Swiss villages and terrorize everyone. So what they would do is they would have these ceremonies where they would dress up and they would have these like really, really immaculate, intricately carved mask made that looked kind of like demonic a little bit. And then they would make these pelts and these whole outfits out of, lamb skin, pig skin. They would make them. And it was really impressive when you look at the amount of craftsmanship in these costumes. And so what they would do is they would have the ceremony where it would scare the witch back up into the mountains. And so they could save their their animals and the kids and all. It would keep the witch out. Well, at some point, and I believe it was in the 90s, the ceremony switched to where they were dressing up in these costumes, and then the men would be the ones that would dress up, and they would run around and terrorize everyone in the town. So something had happened, and I could never find out what it was. It's something that I think I would have to actually go to that town and hopefully find, a whistleblower of some sort of the town secret of why that ritual switched to where now you're chasing around children. You have grown men chasing around children and scaring them, and then they would nab them up. And it doesn't seem like kids were disappearing or anything like what we see over here in America, but it was very ritualistic. And I think there's a very dark side to the Swiss Alps. And then I found out that the natives call the Swiss Alps the Satanic Alps.
Wow.
So I just kept finding all these evil stories about Switzerland. And so I started to kind of put it together. And then I started to audit all of these organizations that are in Switzerland and seeing who's on their boards, who is the CEO, what is their background. I found one common denominator amongst them all. Every director, CEO, or whoever the head, whatever their title was of these organizations, was all part of either a Marxist party, a communist party, or a socialist party. So then I started digging in even more. What are the policies? What is their end game here? Why is this in common here? Why is it evil and very, very left wing? Then I came across the United Bank of Switzerland again, which it's short-wise that people know it as the UBS. Which ironically, the United Bank of Switzerland's logo is almost looks like the Pope's logo with the crossed keys.
Wow. That's
So
amazing that you connected those dots. You're an amazing researcher. But then, for those of you watching, you should know that Erik has his master's in forensic psychology, right?
yes, ma'am.
So I guess it all sort of fits. But my goodness, you connected those dots. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, I might have a problem. I think too much.
I think I have the same problem.
Right. Yeah, we definitely have that in common, Jennylyn. But to continue on, that is when I stumbled upon the United Bank of Switzerland, and they had created this nonprofit organization that the sole purpose of this nonprofit organization was to develop alongside Klaus Schwab's book, which is entitled The Fourth Industrial Revolution. So I had to go read The Fourth Industrial Revolution, and then I had to look into this nonprofit organization, and that is where the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are created. So once that got completed and that organization got it done, they sent it to the United Nations. The United Nations voted it in within minutes, and now it's flooded everywhere. That's where the DEI programs came from. That's where all these things that have happened in America are rooted in Switzerland. It all came from Switzerland. So that is where I have begun, and that is where it basically ends. Now there's more to the story, obviously. I had the help of a journalist in St. Louis that when I was reading into a story that she had done on Elizabeth Warren, the senator. And Elizabeth Warren was working on looking into holding BlackRock accountable for funding both oil companies, and they were funding the green energy programs. So Elizabeth Warren was trying to call them out and say, hey, you can't be on both sides of the fence. And I actually agree with Elizabeth. I don't agree with Elizabeth Warren on anything except this. And I thought she was right on. She was recommending that there be government oversight over BlackRock. And for those of you who do not know, BlackRock is the largest asset management company in the world. They are number one. They run everything, whether it's Coca-Cola, and they also own Pepsi. So they basically buy up companies, then they go buy up the competitors. And when I say buy up, that means hold the assets of them. They invest into everything. Usually they're either the first, second, or third majority holder in nearly every major publicly traded company in America, and a lot of them overseas as well. So that got me into the whole BlackRock thing. And then I thought, well, what does BlackRock have to do with Switzerland? So then I started digging into it. And Larry Fink, who is the CEO of BlackRock, is involved in everything in Switzerland. And so I was like, okay, well, this makes sense now. Everybody's linked. And so what were they doing with Larry Fink and BlackRock? Well, I found out that allegedly, I'll say allegedly because it's who knows whether it's true or not, that Larry Fink is obsessed with living forever. So he's been chasing this power and this spiritual like immortality, and he's willing to be in Switzerland to find it. He thinks it's in Switzerland, and that's why he invests so heavily over into Switzerland, allegedly, of course. So going back, so BlackRock, how they use BlackRock. Switzerland, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, they got Larry Fink on board with this. So now Larry Fink has the ability to manipulate his assets. He holds them, so he can manipulate them. So he basically funneled down the 17 Sustainable Development Goals into every major corporation in America, which is why it rapidly happened under the Biden administration. And it was basically a deal that was supposed to happen. So there's a timeline of this that will kind of help people make sense of it. So it was this all was developed in 2015. It was a brainchild before that, but they finished the 17 Sustainable Development Goals in 2015. So then they implemented it in the United Nations. The United Nations swarmed it all over Europe. So during that time, our president was Barack Obama. So they had this system put together. President Obama was supposed to kind of get this started in America. Well, then phase two was Hillary Clinton was supposed to implement it, heavily implement it, get it all in place and working perfectly for 8 years. Donald Trump screwed it up because he beat her. The greatest upset in American history. And that screwed up the whole plan. The plan was to have this all done globally by the year 2030. And it stated in the World Economic Forum's notes that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are to be completed by the year 2030. Donald Trump put that on pause for 4 years. So it threw him off. And then that's when all these crazy things. So in 2021, the power brokers that be, Donald Trump took an unregistered trip to Switzerland. We know he went there, but we don't know why. And then he came back and didn't say a single nice thing about Switzerland. As a matter of fact, it was shortly after Queen Elizabeth died, and then Joe Biden was seated in the 14th row of the funeral, which that's a no-no. Like Biden should have been in like the first or second row. But he was seated next to the president of Switzerland. And so Donald Trump made a statement and said, well, isn't that funny? Joe Biden's in the 14th row sitting next to a third world country president. So I think what happened was they offered Donald Trump the program and said, hey, you can have endless power if you just buy into our program and make America do it. And Donald Trump rejected it. Almost similar how when George Washington rejected the crown 3 times from the British Empire. I believe they're similar in that way. So Donald Trump rejected the Swiss agenda, which now that we're seeing his executive orders play out, we're seeing that he is in fact putting it on paper. He's rejecting the Swiss effect.
Got it. So I have a question. Did you refer to Switzerland as a third world country?
Donald Trump did.
Okay. All right. So how far into the book are we? You didn't hold it up.
Yeah, the Swiss effect is right here. So
And why does it have a white cross on it?
that's the Swiss flag.
Oh, I see. From where you were holding it, it was
Yeah.
difficult because the light is. Hold
Yeah.
up so we could get a good look at it, because the light. Um, Put it on the opposite side from where you have it. Let's see if we'll get a. Yeah, that's better there. You can see it. Yeah. Okay, people, go get that book. Now, you had some fallout. Are you finished talking about the book?
Yes, ma'am.
So basically, he has given you the essence of he says his opinions in this book. So if you want to go and find out the details of what is in the book, you can find it where, Erik?
So it is being sold in Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. It's being sold overseas too. I believe it's available in New Zealand and places. Somebody just bought it in Russia the other day. It's being sold in Germany. It's everywhere. It's just where you want to where do you want to buy it at? Um,
Okay.
yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
I would be remiss if we didn't insert this. Erik, has become famous since writing this book because one day, shortly after he published his book, he got a call from England. And since it's his story and not mine, I will let him tell you.
So yeah. So what had happened is my cell phone is not registered to me, so it you can't just, even as a cell phone provider, it'll be difficult for them to actually get my exact number.
Is
But
there a reason for that?
yes, kind
But
of,
you
sort of.
don't have to tell us
Yes,
if it's okay.
I try to keep
Okay.
as incognito as possible.
Okay. So tell us, okay, continue the story.
So my stepmom, who has a registered phone, um, and her name starts with a B. So if you were to look up my family members, she would probably be the first one on the list alphabetically because B. So I think that's what happened. They were looking for family members because they couldn't find me, and they called her. So I was at work and my dad called me and he said, "Hey, I just got a phone call from England." I said, "What?" So I said, "Give me the number." He said, well, it was my stepmom that got the phone call. And so he gave me the number. I reverse traced it and it came back to Liverpool, England. So I thought, man, that's weird. Like maybe this is about my book. Maybe they want to interview me or something or ask questions. I thought it was about my book. Well, it is, but just in a different. So I was excited. And so I was like, well, just gonna call it. So I called it, and it was a misinformation like task force. And so I told them my name. They're like, okay, so here's the deal. Uh, your book has offended the crown, and you are not to come to England, any territory of Great Britain, or you will be detained. And they said, is there anything you want to add to your file? And I said something probably ignorant, and then I hung up the phone. And so I was like in shock. I'm like, so what? I can't go to England now? So yeah, I've been banned from England. Um, there's been a lot of other things that have happened to me because of this book. I had somebody try to extort me. They had gotten into my iCloud and was threatening to send all my information all over the place if I didn't pay them like $2,000 in Bitcoin or something.
Did
And
you? Did you do it?
I did not pay.
Oh,
I told them, well, I basically told them, I said, go ahead and do it. You know,
call
uh,
the bluff.
I said,
Call the bluff.
yeah, I said, controversy sells books. So go ahead.
And did you tell them how you came home and found bullet holes all over your house?
Yeah. So it was only one, but
Okay.
I came home from work and I was just kind of looking around because I have pets. So my dog was walking up to me when I got home, and I just saw something. I looked down. I'm like, what is that? And I looked down, and it was a slug in my floor. It was in my floor. So I pulled it out, and I started looking around because it had to come from somewhere, and there was a bullet hole in my window in my kitchen. So yeah, somebody shot through my house, and behind me is like I live just on the outskirts of town, so you can't discharge firearms where I'm at. So I kind of ruled that out. And there's like a business. There's a woods behind my house, and then there's a business behind that. So it's not really like a hunting kind of area, and we don't have any crime where I live, so I wasn't thinking it was a stray from somewhere. Um, then I had somebody drove past my house, took a picture, and then made a bogus Facebook profile and sent it to me on Facebook Messenger, just letting me know I know where you live. Um, just it's just
How long ago was that?
That was right after the book came out.
And when did the book come out?
It came out October 31st on Halloween.
So, Eric, here is my struggle, and I'm an overthinker like you. And here is my big struggle. We are living in a world where we are governed and being ruled by bullies. We are living in a world, and I cannot tell you how it infuriates me, where we have been told what to do, what to learn, what to think, what to say, and basically banned from using the organ that God put in our vessel called a brain. And anytime you come up with, like you do, you went down the road, you did the research, you connected the dots, and somehow you are ruffling feathers. What I say to that is your book, although you say they're your views, must hold facts. For them to go to these extremes and to ban you from England, clearly you are exposing some things that were hidden, maybe for a long time. And this is what I am learning since I've become a journalist, and I too am going down rabbit holes. We are born. We are born to a family. They teach us how to speak, how to dress. They teach us most of what we learn until we're put in a school system. In that system is a curriculum, which now in my research I am discovering is designed to enslave and control us. And so those of us, like you and I, for whom all the dots are not connecting, when we question, then we are stepping away from the program. And it's one thing if we step away and we keep it to ourselves or amongst ourselves. But then when we start sharing it with others and they stop living in the box and following the status quo and using their brains and doing their research, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why they want to ban TikTok. Because on TikTok, there's millions of people, and at least three-quarters of them are like you and I, where they have done the research. The dots are not connecting, they are questioning, And they're sharing what they have discovered with enthusiasm and excitement. Because nobody likes being lied to. And we all want to break out of this matrix that is definitely not serving us. And so I am not popular, but I don't really care. I've always been sort of radical. I have the love of God, and I have the love of those people with whom my way of living and thinking resonates. And that's enough for me. I am not here to impress anybody with money or power. I am here to live my truth. God has given me a brain and sent me down here to do His will. And I'm telling you, the gel isn't gelling for me. And I am not going to eat the gel on my toast because my stomach is rejecting it. And now
Right.
it's actually coming out. So I am not going to be in the popular majority, but that's okay because I am hoping the work that people like you and I are doing is going to help mankind to wake up. And then pretty soon, everybody will start realizing that we're living in a matrix that's been controlled and governed by people who are living big at our enslavement. And so I know they're already watching me because I've been vocal. And I'm not putting them down, but I'm asking them not to put me down and to make me feel like I'm stupid. Just because someone is not wealthy or someone is not famous doesn't mean that we're stupid. And I would like to encourage everyone watching this segment to go and get Erik's book. He's not asking you to believe what is in it. He's simply asking you to take a look at his research and the dots that he has connected. And if it speaks to you, great, because some people are quite content living in ignorance. And I'm not saying they're ignorant, but if you're not doing the homework and if the dots are not connecting, then you're living in ignorance. Because for me, dots have to connect. And from childhood, I've been asking questions that no one can answer. And now I found those answers for myself because my curiosity will not let me rest. But now that I have the answers, I've been experiencing emotions I don't like. And when TikTok went down and came back up, it just fueled those emotions because it's obvious to me what I've always suspected is exactly why they are trying to ban TikTok. And in this country, as they say, and I quote, the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer because it would appear as though that is the design. But before I wrap, here's what I want to say. What is rich and what is poor? I am not poor. As a matter of fact, I'm quite rich. And I encourage all of you to become the kind of rich that we are, because that's what sets you free and that's what helps you to find your power, your voice, and the place in the world that will benefit you and those who are important to you. And on that note, I will let Erik leave his closing message, and we will see you guys soon.
It's a great time to be an independent journalist, or an investigative journalist. It's a shame that our mainstream media has lost the craft. It's no longer journalism. It's no longer investigative. It's just script reading. And I encourage everyone. I think we have more people in this world that have learned how to investigate and question and look for facts. And I applaud everyone out there that does that. It's not an easy thing to do, but that's the only way that we're going to be able to find the truth or pieces of the truth in things. So I'm not going to stop doing this no matter how many bullets they put through my window or how many times they take pictures of my house or, or whatever they want to do next. It's not going to stop me. I want to leave as much of my positive um, way of thinking on this earth as long as I can. And if I can bring some light to something that helps humanity, then I want to do that, no matter what the cost. And I just appreciate anyone who goes out and buys my book and just sees the work that I put in, whether you believe it or not. I enjoy the feedback. I enjoy it. I greatly do, because that's why I make these books. So you can read it and think and go, or maybe you'll read it and you'll go, huh. So, those are the two little grunts that I'm waiting to hear. Um, I hope that everyone keeps a cool head, because there's a lot more investigative work to do out there. And as you see from TikTok, like Jennylyn has intricately laid out, there's people out there putting that work in. There's a lot of great people out there that are better than me at this. And they're doing a great service to humanity right now, and finding all the things that this government tries to hide from us, or that the world government tries to hide from us. And we all know that they hide it from us, but we have to find it. And we're winning that battle. We won that battle. So now we have to stay ahead. So I appreciate everybody. I appreciate you, Jennylyn, for taking the time to invest into me, and become a very, very good friend. And it's been a fun journey so far, and I look forward to the future.
As do I. And Erik, it is my pleasure, because people like you need to be heard, because we are the people who is fighting. We are fighting for mankind. And during the election, it was so clear to me there's a large majority of people who have picked a side. And that's all that matters. They have picked this side, and they're not even listening or looking at what is happening, and how little of what is happening will be beneficial to them. And that breaks my heart. And I'm not on the side, I am not on any side, because I always say, wings of the same bird, same puppeteers. But I am not here to judge anyone. I support everybody's beliefs and choices, and hope that the choices we are making will benefit everyone. And it may be a long road, but they say to walk 1,000 miles begins with one step. And we are on the way. And Erik and I will see you soon with the new series, the Jenny Flicks.
Jenny Flicks.
Bye!